to welcome ANC Western Region board members Anahi Oshagan and Ike Dikijian.
How are we doing, everybody? I'm honored to introduce our last but definitely not least honoree. Throughout her career as a reporter, Ellina Abovian has devoted her efforts at KTLA 5 to inform the public on the growing need for international intervention to stop the horrific attacks against Armenian civilians in Artsakh. Her thoughtful reporting continues to enlighten the public, drawing a clear connection between our local community and the need to recognize the crimes against humanity of the past and present in order to promote national and international security for a peaceful future. For Abovian, raising her voice in order to amplify the voices of the Armenian community is a calling that fulfills the highest principles in her profession. For her efforts to ensure Armenians have a voice and are heard with a growing presence in the news, the ANCA Western Region is delighted to honor Ellina Abovian with the Excellence Media Award.
Good evening. Dear ANCA Western Region, Reverend clergy, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me this evening. Truth be told, I should be in bed right now because I have to wake up at 3 to do snooze. But I am so humbled and so honored for this gesture and for this recognition, which means so much to me. As a product of a small Armenian immigrant family, all I wanted to do growing up was to find a voice and to fit in. I never imagined that I would have this opportunity to represent my community in the way that I have been privileged to do so in the last few years. When I first started in this business, all I really wanted to do was to be a journalist, to be a storyteller, and to work in television. In fact, I thought it might be wise to change my last name, maybe drop the IAN in order to better fit into an industry that seemed so far-fetched and so out of my league. I started my career in San Luis Obispo, eventually went to Fresno and then San Diego, and had the dream of one day working in Los Angeles, my hometown, which in my industry is considered the big leagues. I spent 5 years away from home and just worked very tirelessly. And little did I know then that being an Armenian would end up being my greatest meal ticket. In 2015, while I was working in Fresno, the general manager for KTLA and Beyond, a man by the name of Don Corsini, who I'd never heard of before, never met before, had apparently heard of me. So he came personally down to San Diego to give me the invitation to work for KTLA as a staff general assignment reporter. So you can imagine my reaction at the time. Why me? Why are you bestowing this incredible job, this dream opportunity to me when there are probably other reporters out there with way more experience? And he looked at me and said, well, we admire your work, but quite frankly, we want an Armenian. Because we need an Armenian to represent the community in Southern California. And I thought, wow, we've come a really long way. That a station that is so profound in Los Angeles and beyond in Southern California needs and wants an Armenian to represent. I took that as a big honor and a big responsibility, which at the time I didn't quite understand. So I worked as a rookie reporter even back then, trying to find my voice. And in that same year, in 2015, we were invited, my husband and I, to attend an ANCA for the first time. And sitting through the evening, I looked around, listening to various speeches, meeting different people, thinking, wow, this is truly inspiring. And I hope one day I can be invited myself and maybe be here with a real purpose. And that was 8 years ago. I remember, again, I didn't understand the weight of my responsibility back then until 2020. Things changed overnight. In November of that year, the war in Artsakh broke out, and I found myself in completely uncharted waters. I wasn't telling stories of general assignment in my own backyard. I was trying to tell a story, trying very desperately to tell a story about something happening 3,000 miles away, yet so close to my heart. And I remember having a conversation with Council President Brian Corey and seeking his guidance. How do we do this? How do we make people care? How do we make them understand the human condition, that this is not about politics, even though they can't pronounce the name of our region, that they should care because this is a humanitarian issue that applies to all of us. And it was then that I truly understood the power of coming together as a community and making our voice one in order to be heard by all. So we did a story. One story turned to 20, it turned to 30. Before I knew it, I spent months doing stories about our cause, just hoping, praying, and wishing someone was listening. How did I tell those stories? Well, I told your stories of the legislators who were trying to pass legislation to further our cause, of the people raising funds and awareness, of doctors traveling to Artsakh and to Armenia to care for the wounded, and of the kids on the streets trying to raise funds. It was a grassroots community effort, and it was us at our best. Ladies and gentlemen, as a journalist, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that our efforts made a huge difference or changed the course of what happened to us. But we tried. And the reason I know this is because this year we saw what happened in 2020 repeated again, except this time it was a genocide in plain view and in plain sight. But I can tell you one thing with absolute certainty, that this is not the end of our story. What our enemies surely know is that our story is much older, it's much better, it's much richer, and it's going to go much farther. Because our story goes back thousands of years, and we have thousands of years of stories to still tell. And that is my vow to you, to keep telling these stories to the best of my ability. Whether it is in our darkest moments or our brightest days. Thank you especially to the delegation of the LA County Board of Supervisors, spearheaded by Board Supervisor Catherine Barker, for delegating April as Armenian History Month in Los Angeles and LA County, because it gave us the opportunities to at least shine a positive light as well. It has been my honor to present stories that we don't want to hear, but also stories of inspiration. There are so many inspiring stories here, especially in Los Angeles, people who have reached great heights. And I sometimes find that in order to make people care, we have to show them exactly who we are and where we come from and what we achieved and how much more we can still achieve. So thank you to this community for allowing me to tell your stories, for allowing me to have this platform. And I hope and pray that the stories I continue to tell are only the positive ones. Thank you.